Hi, I'm Erica Lukes, the Executive Director of Expanding Frontiers, where we provide the public reliable information through proven research methods. Here at EFR, we frequently use the Freedom of Information Act as a valuable tool. The FOIA can help researchers gain insights into historic events, especially when combined with resources like public archives and online reading rooms where intelligence agencies post previously released records. Take, for instance, the origin story of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, or NICAP. It was a mid-20th century Washington, D.C.-based group that became the largest UFO organization ever assembled. But how exactly did it begin? Well, archived NICAP records show how a public service relations firm named Council Services collaborated with T. Townsend Brown to formally incorporate NICAP in August 1956. The parties simultaneously entered into a contract between Council Services and NICAP, stipulating things like the two Council Services officers would select and hire NICAP personnel at their discretion. Making use of newspaper archives, we can identify Mary Von King and a man named Leo McCormick were credited with co-founding Council Services during the eventful year of 1947. Baltimore newspaper clippings show Council Services became contracted by a government office called the Economic Cooperation Administration to coordinate specialists to conduct work abroad in places like Europe and China. The newspaper clippings describing these ventures are from 1949 and 1950. So who was the Economic Cooperation Administration, and what did they do? Further research revealed the Economic Cooperation Administration, the ECA, was in fact a covert arm of the CIA. A 1949 letter authored by then Roscoe Hillenkoetter of the Central Intelligence Agency documents how the CIA used the ECA to collect and share classified intelligence. This letter was authored just months before newspapers reported Council Services was contracted by the ECA. A now declassified 1973 CIA studies in intelligence reports focusing from 1948 to 1952 timeframes explained how the ECA worked with the Office of Policy Coordination, an aggressive covert division of the CIA. The Office of Policy Coordination, known as the OPC, took substantial interest in psychological and economic warfare. CIA leadership during this specific era are documented by the CIA itself as expressing interest in the use of the UFO topic as a psychological warfare tool. FBI records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act show how the same point in time in 1949, Council Services co-founder Leo McCormick worked for the ECA as project director. It was then a few years later, in 1956, that Mary Von King, Thomas O'Keefe, and Council Services would facilitate the incorporation of NICAP. A resume Thomas O'Keefe apparently provided listed his previous employer as the State Department. O'Keefe was apparently a member of the Selection Board for Foreign Service Officers of the Department of State. Additional research conducted through the FOIA process revealed more information about specific people involved with the CIA, and more specifically, the Office of Policy Coordination and Economic Cooperation Administration. This included an attorney named Gordon Gray, who was the first director in 1950 of the CIA Psychological Strategy Board. He went on to spend a career combating Russian propaganda and communist recruiting techniques acting as a presidential security advisor in a number of capacities. A 1982 memo sent from the U.S. Government Accounting Office to the FBI was obtained through FOIA and then further declassified through a successful appeal. The memo addressed a search for Nazi war criminals and sought information on some 35 projects and organizations, many directly involving the CIA, including the Office of Policy Coordination and the Psychological Strategy Board. A number of initiatives named were formerly perceived by agency personnel as indicative of integrity and patriotism. The questioning of fascist policies and procedures in hindsight could be considered to be mirrored in the evolution of NICAP. Some of the leadership of the organization reportedly embraced questionable ideologies, and the presence of the NICAP Board of Governors of the very CIA officers assigned to projects named by the Government Accounting Office was arguably more a rule than an exception. As a matter of fact, it is not disputed that in 1978, the president of NICAP, Jack Acuff, sold the organization mailing list twice to Ernst Zundel and his Toronto-based Nazi publishing house. Members were reportedly barraged with Nazi propaganda. To learn more about the circumstances discussed in this video and to view records for yourself, visit our blog at expandingfrontiersresearch.org. You can also find informative discussions with interesting guests on our YouTube channel. Please take a minute to support EFR and our work at Patreon. Links for this video description are below. Expanding Frontiers is a Utah-based nonprofit corporation tax-exempted under Section 501c3 of the United States Internal Revenue Code. We thank you for your support, and we look forward to providing more useful information to all of you in the future.